The information in this video is taken from David Wilcock's book, The Ascension Mysteries, from the Alice A. Bailey's book and the documentary movie Thrive. There is a spiritual war going on at this time between the forces of light and the forces of materialism. Both want control of humanity. The forces of light, signified by the spiritual hierarchy of our planet, work with love for the evolution and freedom of humanity, while the forces of materialism, called by the Church evil, work for the enslavement of humanity. The Antichrist is not an individual. It represents the forces of materialism, the forces of evil, greed, and selfishness. Henry Kissinger said, "Whoever controls the media controls the people. Whoever controls the money controls the world." The forces of evil work through those who control the people of the world, through their rigged economic system. They are the global elite, so-called the cabal. They foster divisiveness, racism, religious bigotry, fear, and injustice. More information is continually being revealed to us as to who they are and their purpose. In 1913, the American financial system was privatized. That is, America's right to issue money was handed over to a group of private bankers who called themselves the Federal Reserve. President Woodrow Wilson said his biggest mistake was to sign the bill into law, creating the Federal Reserve. It is not federal at all. In 2008, the 12 private banks of the Federal Reserve made $26 trillion of American taxpayers' money, which monies they divided among themselves to bail out banks, which were not even based in the U.S. We learned this from the congressional audit made in 2011. The Federal Reserve has complete authority. No one can tell it what to do. They can lend money to the EU and then force them to adhere to the divisive foreign policies of the cabal. On September 19, 2011, a Swiss scientific study led by Dr. James Glatterfelder proved that 80% of all the monies that were being made in the world was filtering back into the pockets of the Federal Reserve through disguised interlocking directories of corporations. This includes the big media conglomerates. This web of ownership from 737 corporations was further narrowed down to 147 companies. Of that number, 75% of the corporations within this super entity are financial institutions. What is the ulterior motive of the shareholders of the banks of the Federal Reserve? In the movie Thrive, Henry Kissinger said that a new world order is ideal for the world. One world government and globalization are the aims of the cabal. They want unlimited power and control of all governments and people through their rigged economic system. How best can this be accomplished? By force, through wars, creating puppet governments, and the collapse of a country's economy. Over 30 countries have been violently overthrown by the United States for regime change for the benefit of the cabal. It started with Iran in 1953. The last country to be cruelly overthrown by a coup was Ukraine in 2014. A violent overthrow of a regime is not necessary for them. They can topple a government through their economy. Today, the big banks gamble not in trillions but in quadrillions. In 2014, the Omnibus Bill was passed by the Congress, at the lobbying of President Obama. It contained a clause that requires the taxpayers to bail out the banks if there is a stock market crash. David Wilcock wrote the book, The Ascension Mysteries. His destiny is to wake up the uninformed, complacent population to the overpowering present forces of materialism. His mission is to expand the consciousness of humanity and to prepare them for the spiritual ascension in the forthcoming Golden Age. Wilcock's book is based upon information from insiders who worked for NASA and/or the government. Therefore, the information is to be respected. NASA had pictures of the moon that astounded the astronauts. They were domed buildings and pyramids. The obelisks were made of glass-like material. They were made of a transparent aluminum alloy. NASA airbrushed the obelisks and UFOs out of the lunar pictures. It is difficult to believe that our military-industrial complex has secretly colonized space. A high-level insider, Henry, worked in a base on Mars with 200,000 personnel, and only 10,000 of them were from Earth. Various ancient bases were pressurized and reoccupied. He has seen 43 different types of ET species. All of them were human-like in appearance. This insider was trained to repair certain types of advanced equipment. He had traveled to various bases in the solar system. He was aware of a high-energy cloud our solar system was moving into. It was supposed to trigger a dramatic evolutionary event on Earth, including a solar energy release of some kind. Insiders said that a great deal of information was being released through fiction. The TV show, Stargate SG-1, was full of truthful information one insider had encountered on his job. There is a Stargate network that allows travel from place to place. Each planet is given its own Stargate. In the case of our Earth, our main gate was dug out of the desert in Egypt in 1927. You can travel outside our galaxy through the use of the addresses. The local address of the Earth is 606, in case you get lost. When television was new in the 60s, the government hid in the video subliminal text. For example, trust the US government. They used mind control techniques and commands. It is used in advertisements. Our government has cloaking technology that can make naval vessels, aircraft, and spacecraft invisible. Bob Dean, the insider, got in trouble for leaking this information in a Project Camelot video from April 2010. He said, "They don't want us to know about the Aerospace Command here. Would you believe that trillions of dollars a year are going off to a military command that the American people don't even know exists? It used to be in Nebraska. It used to be in Colorado Springs. Now, the headquarters, I swear to God, the headquarters is in orbit. It puts NASA to shame." The insider, Pete Peterson, discovered that we have a dimple in the middle of each shoulder blade, where a huge cluster of nerve fibers all intersect going up to the brain. Pete and his insiders feel we were meant to use these areas once we learned how to access them. Special energetic fields can pump visual information, sounds, and thoughts directly into the brain through these areas, which they call ports. This system was depicted in the movie The Matrix. We have the potential to vastly increase our intelligence and learn multiple languages through the use of this technology. This system can also be used to project people into a vividly realistic virtual reality environment. Pete also revealed that 55 to 60 million of the most intelligent and talented scientists from around the world were recruited into the secret space program. They would cut all ties with their family and friends on Earth. Their postcards would be sent to their families regularly. Advertisements for these jobs were openly distributed in Brazil. In total, since the 1950s, the number of people working out in space could now be well above 300 million. They were encouraged to marry. Some of these people also work in vast tunnels around the world. Pete was aware of approximately 250 different underground bases that were built around the world. Each of these underground facilities is built to hold a maximum of 65,000 people. There are trees, roads, and buildings inside, as well as a domed roof with artificial light. Injections would be given to people that would make it lethal for them to return to the surface. There is one underground facility under Fort Huachuca that is gigantic. Our military, our shadow government, is deeply involved with extraterrestrial operations. The Cabal's plan was to have a full-scale nuclear war in which nuclear submarines fired off their ordnance. The Cabal would make sure all their friends, colleagues, and family members were taken underground before the war started. They planned on living down there until the Earth became habitable again. Modern nuclear weapons were not designed to create any lasting radiation, so an extended stay underground would not be required. Each of these cities has a docking station in the ocean where the breeder reactor in a nuclear submarine can plug in and power the entire facility for many years. What is off about it is that you could always hear the sound of ventilation fans, and there was a persistent smell of machine oil in the air. A vast system of underground passageways called the sub-shuttle system interlinks these cities together. even underneath oceans. The shuttles travel by the use of high-intensity compressed air and are extremely fast. Apollo 13 mission carried a nuclear device that could be set off to make measurements of the infrastructure of the moon. The unexplained explosion of the oxygen tank in the service module was caused by a UFO that was following the capsule to prevent the detonation of the atomic charge. From the UFO crash in 1947 at Roswell, New Mexico, our government would take something from the ship and hand it to a corporation, asking them to reproduce it. They would be told it was a foreign technology. A variety of our favorite technologies were taken from this and other crashes and were reverse engineered. They have smart materials that can repair their own damage, generate anti-gravity, and create free energy. It has to do with the atoms all fitting together in a perfect geometric lattice. A forecast has been made that the great stock market crash would occur in 2020 before the next election, wherein the Democratic Party would win. Then, the war against Russia might start in April or October 2023. What the government and the cabal do not know is that the masters of our space brothers know their plans. The nuclear warheads will be diffused by them. There will be no nuclear war. The nuclear fallout in the upper atmosphere affects other planets. However, that does not mean that there will be no disaster. The US has a mother of bombs, which is meant for destroying deep underground storage facilities in Iran. If that bomb is used on Iran, you can be certain that the nuclear cloud will cover all of the Middle East and parts of Europe. Psychics years ago have seen many ships transporting people from the Middle East and East Europe in ships around the Horn of Africa to other countries. The maps in the archives of the spiritual hierarchy show a dark overhanging cloud over that area. This is mentioned in the book The Rays and the Initiations by Alice A. Bailey on page 430. This book was written in April 1947. Our planetary deity has been given an order by the Lord of the Solar System to speed up the evolution of humanity. In the past, initiation was given individually. Now it will be given in groups. Millions are ready for their first major initiation. We may see this happening in 2025, when the spiritual forces known as Shambhala meet every 100 years. It is the enlightened public and the younger generation who will insist on changes. Whenever the energies of powerful negative forces control the world, as is the case now, where the major media and the economic system are controlled by the cabal, it attracts a positive polarity. That is the cosmic law. What has happened is that the head of the spiritual hierarchy of our planet, the world teacher, is here now. He is that positive polarity. He came earlier than expected because of the suffering of the little ones. On page 211 of the book A Treatise on Cosmic Fire, under footnote, the world teacher, it says the following. The Buddha held office prior to the present world teacher, and upon his illumination, the Lord Maitreya took his place. The Occidentals call him the Christ. The book was written in 1925 by the Tibetan master D.K. through his amanuensis Alice A. Bailey by means of mental telepathy. For more information, see www.shareinternational.org or my website, under Masters. The Tibetan master also said that when the time came for the great event of the reappearance of the Christ, none of the so-called spiritual organizations would help. They had to use a disciple, Benjamin Creme, to be their John the Baptist. The major media is aware of Maitreya's presence, but they do not want the public to learn of it, as they would lose their power to prevent changes in the economic, political, and social systems. Edgar Cayce forecast that the Christ would return in 1998. In June 1998, the Lord Maitreya suddenly appeared before 6,000 people at a healing gathering in Nairobi, Kenya. He spoke in Swahili for 18 minutes and then disappeared. The editor of the newspaper was present and took pictures of him. This is one of those pictures. A master of his stature has immense powers. He created his own body, which is not a real body, It is called a Maivarupa. Bullets can do him no harm. He can change his appearance to a child, a woman, or whatever. Satya Sai Baba was a cosmic avatar. He had millions of devotees around the world. In February 1990, a party of American scientists, including a top nuclear physicist from Harvard University, visited him in India. They said, "Since you are called a divine being, make a rainbow in the sky. If you can do this, we will be convinced." Sai Baba smiled, bent his head for a minute, then said, "Look up." They saw a rainbow. This was done before thousands of Sai Baba's followers. The scientists were humbled. They are ready to talk about the truth they found, but the question remains, why do these things that Baba does not receive coverage in the media elsewhere in the world? The answer is that the media is controlled by people who are motivated by market forces. The book, Esoteric Psychology 1, was written in 1936 by the Tibetan master through Alice A. Bailey. On pages 123 and 124, it says, "When he whom both angels and men await will approach near unto this physical plane, he will bring with him not only some of the great ones and the masters, but some of the devas who stand to the deva evolution as the masters to the human. Forget not that the human evolution is but one of many, and that this is a period of crisis among the devas likewise. The call has gone forth for them to approach humanity, and with their heightened vibration and superior knowledge, unite their forces with those of humanity for the progression of the two evolutions. They have much to impart, anent color and sound, and their effect upon the etheric bodies of men and animals. Physical ills will be nullified. They will also teach men how rightly to nourish the body and to draw from the surrounding ethers the requisite food. When the world recognizes the Lord Maitreya as the world teacher, we cannot imagine the harmonious effect of all the masters and their disciples living with us once again on earth. Their light is the light of the soul. It will be the equivalent of the kingdom of God on earth. However, before this can happen, there will be a day of declaration when Maitreya will appear on the radio and television networks of the world linked by satellite. On that day, Maitreya will mentally overshadow the whole of humanity simultaneously. All over the age of 14 will hear his words inwardly in their own language. This telepathic communication will reach everyone, not only those watching or listening, and hundreds of thousands of miraculous healings will take place throughout the world. On that day, there will be no doubt that Maitreya is the Christ of the Christians, the Messiah of the Jews, the Imam Mahdi of the Muslims, Maitreya Buddha of the Buddhists, the Kalki avatar of the Hindus, and the world teacher for humanity. His open worldwide mission will have begun. It will be the dawn of the Golden Age, where brotherly love will be the goal of the Aquarian Age. The high energy cloud that our solar system is moving into, mentioned by Henry, most likely is the reappearance of the Christ, the externalization of the spiritual hierarchy, and the dawn of the Golden Age. The timing of this event depends upon the demand of humanity for Maitreya and/or the defeat of the Cabal and the repeal of the Federal Reserve System Act.